The little boy was wandering around a hotel when he heard some strange noises coming from one of the rooms. Curious, he opened the door and said, "Wow, it's really dark in here." From inside, a man's voice replied, "What do you want, kid? Here's $10, go get yourself something, and don't come back." Well, a little while later, the boy came back, opened the same door, and again said, "Wow, it's still dark in here." Annoyed, the man groaned, "You again? Fine, here's $10 more, now scram." The boy walked away with $20 in his pocket and a mischievous grin on his face. The next morning, feeling a little guilty, he confessed to his mom. She frowned and said, "That's not okay. You need to go to church and confess your sins." So off he went. He entered the confession booth and said, "Wow, it's dark in here." And from the other side, he heard a very familiar voice say, "Seriously? Not you again." A young couple, both shy and totally new to married life, finally tie the knot. Their wedding night arrives and they're both super nervous, but neither wants to admit it. The husband, unsure what to do, secretly calls his dad. "Pop, what do I do first?" "Dad, simple. Get undressed and hop into bed." So he does. Meanwhile, the nervous bride sneaks a call to her mom. "Mama, what do I do?" "Mom, just get undressed and join him." They both lie there awkwardly for a bit, then the husband calls his dad again. "Okay, I'm in bed." "Now what?" "Dad, look at her, son. Then take the hardest part of your body and put it where she pees." A few minutes pass. Now the bride is back on the phone with her mom. "Mama, he's in the bathroom with his head in the toilet." A college professor had noticed that one of his students, Dave, had suddenly started attracting a lot of female attention. Curious about his secret, the professor finally decided to ask him, "Dave, what's your secret? You've been getting more attention than anyone else in the class." Dave smiled and replied, "Well, it's simple. Before sex, I just whip out my package and smack it against the bedside table like a hammer. It kind of numbs it up and helps me last longer." Later that evening, the professor went home to his wife, who was in the shower. Excited for a little action, he quickly undressed. Remembering Dave's advice, he started banging his package against the dresser. Just then, he heard his wife call from the shower, "Dave, is that you?" A newly ordained priest, nervous about hearing confessions, decides to ask an experienced priest for some guidance. He requests that the older priest observe his session and offer some advice. After listening in on the second confession, the older priest suggests try folding your arms, maybe rub your chin with one hand, and use phrases like, "I see, I understand," or "Yes, my child, go on." The young priest takes the advice to heart, and soon afterwards he shares with the older priest how much it helped him get more details from the congregation. The older priest nods in approval, saying, "Well done." Then with a smirk he adds, "Isn't that much better than slapping your knee and shouting, 'No way, what happened next?'" A travel agent was sitting at his desk when he noticed an elderly couple standing outside gazing longingly at the posters of dream vacations in the shop window. They looked sweet and, honestly, a little heartbroken. The agent had just had a great week in business, so he felt a wave of kindness wash over him. He rushed outside, brought them in, and said, "Listen, I know travel isn't easy on a pension, but I want to treat you both to a luxury vacation. My treat, no strings attached. Just say yes." Shocked but thrilled, the couple accepted. The agent had his assistant book 2 plane tickets and a room at a beautiful 5-star resort. About a month later, the little old lady came back into the shop, smiling. "How was the trip?" the agent asked. "Oh, it was just lovely. The flight was wonderful, and the hotel was like something out of a dream," she said. "I came to say thank you, but I do have one question." The agent raised an eyebrow. "Sure, what is it?" She leaned in and whispered, "Who was that old man I had to share the room with?" A man lay on his deathbed, surrounded by his loving family, his devoted wife, and 4 children. 3 of the kids were tall, athletic, and strikingly handsome, but the youngest was, well, let's just say not quite the same. With his final breath, the man turned to his wife and whispered, "My love, please tell me the truth. Is our youngest child truly mine? I can handle anything. I just need to know before I go." His wife smiled softly, took his hand and said, "Yes, my darling. Of course. He is absolutely yours." The man sighed in peace and passed away with a smile on his face. The wife looked around, took a deep breath, and quietly said to herself, "Ooh, good thing he didn't ask about the other three." A farmer buys a young rooster and brings him home. The moment they get to the farm, the rooster runs off and mates with all 150 hens. The farmer's impressed but thinks, well, that's a lot for day one. By lunchtime, the rooster's at it again, round two with all the hens. The next day, the farmer sees the rooster chasing the ducks and geese too. Later that afternoon, he finds the rooster lying flat on his back in the yard, eyes closed, feet in the air with vultures circling overhead. The farmer shakes his head and says, "You overdid it, buddy. You wore yourself out." Then the rooster opens one eye, points up, and whispers, "Shh, they're about to land." First day on the job, and this trainee already knows how to handle the big boss. A man starts his first day as a trainee at a big corporate empire. Feeling bold, he picks up the phone and dials the pantry. "Get me a coffee, quickly," he demands. But oops, he didn't dial the pantry. A voice on the other end snaps back, "You fool. You've dialed the wrong extension. Do you even know who you're talking to, Dumbo?" "No," the trainee replies. The voice on the other end huffs, "It's the CEO of the company, you fool." The trainee thinks for a second, then shouts back, "And do you know who you're talking to, you fool?" The CEO, now totally confused, asks, "No, who?" The trainee replies, "Good," and hangs up. A man walks into a pet store and says, "I want a pet that can do everything." The owner suggests a dog. The man shakes his head. "A dog? Nah." The owner says, "Okay, how about a cat?" The man rolls his eyes. "Definitely not. I need something more impressive. I mean everything." The shop owner thinks for a second and says, "I've got just the thing. A centipede." The man blinks. "A centipede? Seriously? Fine, I'll give it a try." He takes the little guy home and says, "All right, first task. Go clean the kitchen." 30 minutes later, he checks the kitchen and it's spotless. Dishes done, counters shining, floor sparkling. The man is amazed. Next, he tells the centipede, "Now go clean the living room." 20 minutes later, the carpet's vacuumed, pillows are fluffed, furniture dusted, even the plants are watered. The man is blown away. This is the best pet ever. It really can do everything. So finally he says, "Hey buddy, run down to the corner store and grab me a newspaper." The centipede walks out the door. 10 minutes go by. No centipede. 20 minutes, still no sign. 30 minutes, nothing. Now the man's getting worried. At 45 minutes, he opens the front door and there's the centipede, just sitting there. He says, "Hey, I told you to get me a newspaper 45 minutes ago. What happened?" The centipede looks up and says, I'm going. I'm just putting on my shoes." An old cowboy moseyed into a Starbucks and ordered himself a cup of coffee. He found a seat, tipped his hat back, and started sipping. Not long after, a young woman sat down beside him and asked, "Excuse me, are you a real cowboy?" The old man thought for a moment and said, "Well, ma'am, I've spent my whole life breaking colts, herding cattle, fixing fences, branding calves, mending tractors, sleeping under the stars, and wrangling just about everything on four legs. So yeah, I reckon I am." The young woman nodded and said, "I'm a lesbian. I spend most of my day thinking about women. I wake up thinking about women, I shower thinking about women, I eat, watch TV, work, no matter what I'm doing, I'm always thinking about women." The cowboy tipped his hat politely, and they both sat in silence sipping their drinks. A little while later, another man came along, sat on the other side of the cowboy, and asked, "Are you a real cowboy?" The old man looked up and said, "Well, I thought I was, but turns out I might actually be a lesbian." For his birthday, David got a parrot. But this wasn't your average sweet-talking bird. Oh, no. This parrot was fully grown, had a nasty attitude and a mouth worse than a sailor on bad coffee, Every other word was either rude, offensive, or downright unrepeatable. David tried everything to fix this feathered menace. He spoke kindly to it, played soft music, even tried classical radio. Nothing worked. The more polite David was, the more disrespectful the parrot became. He yelled. It yelled louder. He threatened it. It cursed him out. It was like living with a feathery little gangster. One day, at his wit's end, David lost it. In a moment of pure desperation, he gently shoved the parrot into the freezer for just a few seconds, just to cool him off, literally and figuratively. The bird went wild, squawking, scratching, kicking the door. Then suddenly silence. Panicked, David flung open the freezer door. The parrot calmly stepped out, eyes wide, feathers slightly frosty, and said in the most polite tone ever, "Sir, I deeply apologize for my past behavior. I have seen the error of my ways, and I will make every effort to be a model bird from now on. Please forgive me." David stood there, stunned, trying to process the sudden transformation. Before he could say a word, the parrot leaned in and whispered, "May I ask, what exactly did the chicken do?" "My cousin just called and asked if I would loan her $300 to help her pay her rent. Those who know me know that I'm always willing to help out friends and family. I told her to give me some time to think about it and I would call her back. Before I called her back, my aunt called and told me that my cousin was lying and not to give her the money. She goes on to say that the real reason my cousin wanted the $300 was to get her boyfriend out of jail so she could be under the same roof as him for his birthday. I thought about it for a minute and decided to give her the $300 because we all need help at times. So I called my cousin and told her to come and get the money. A couple of hours later, I get a call from the Cook County Jail. It was my cousin crying, screaming, and asking why I gave her counterfeit money. My response, so you and your boyfriend could be under the same roof for his birthday. A college student wanted to sit next to his professor at lunch, but the professor looked at him smugly and said, "A swan does not befriend a pig." The student simply smiled and replied, "Then I shall fly on." The professor was not amused and decided to make the student's life difficult. During the oral exam, he threw the hardest questions at him, but the student answered them all flawlessly. Frustrated, the professor tried a trick question. "You're walking down a road and find two bags, one with gold and one with wisdom. Which do you choose?" The student confidently replied, "The gold." The professor scoffed. "I would choose wisdom. It's far more valuable than money." The student grinned. "Well, everyone picks what they don't have." The professor turned red with anger and instead of giving the student a grade, scribbled "ass" on his exam paper. The student calmly picked up his paper and walked out. Moments later, he returned, handed the paper back, and said, "Excuse me, sir, you signed it, but you forgot to give me my grade." Fred is 32 years old and he is still single. One day a friend asked, "Why aren't you married? Can't you find a woman who will be a good wife?" Fred replied, "Actually, I've found many women I wanted to marry, but when I bring them home to meet my parents, my mother doesn't like them." His friend thinks for a moment and says, "I've got the perfect solution. Just find a girl who's just like your mother." A few months later, they meet again and his friend says, "Did you find the perfect girl? Did your mother like her?" With a frown on his face, Fred answers, "Yes, I found the perfect girl. She was just like my mother. My mother liked her very much." The friend said, "Then what's the problem?" Fred replied, "My father doesn't like her." Three handsome male dogs are strutting down the street when they spot a stunning lady poodle lounging in the sun. Instantly smitten, they all rush over, tails wagging, tongues out, hoping to impress her. The poodle, clearly used to turning heads, decides to have a little fun. She says sweetly, "All right, boys, I'll make it simple. The first one who can use the words liver and cheese in the same sentence creatively and intelligently gets to take me out." The strong and proud black lab steps forward first. "I love liver and cheese," he declares confidently. The poodle shakes her head. Sweet, but not exactly clever." Next up is the tall and shiny golden retriever. He thinks hard and blurts out, "I hate liver and cheese." The poodle sighs. Well, at least you were honest, but not very imaginative. Finally, the smallest of the bunch steps up. The Chihuahua. Small in size, but clearly big on charm. He winks, flashes a toothy grin, looks at the others and says, "Liver alone, cheese mine." The poodle was speechless. A 19-year-old Italian girl nervously confesses to her mother, "Mama, I've missed my period for 2 months." Panic sets in. The mother rushes to the pharmacy, buys a pregnancy test, and within minutes, the results confirm her worst fears. Her daughter is pregnant. Shouting, crying, and waving her hands wildly, the mother demands, "Who was the pig that did this to you? I want to know right now." Through her tears, the girl admits that she only dated the father for a short time. Then, hesitantly, she picks up the phone and makes a call. 30 minutes later, a sleek Ferrari pulls up in front of their modest home. Out steps a distinguished, silver-haired gentleman in a tailored Armani suit. Calmly, he walks into the house where the family is gathered in tense silence. Taking a seat in the living room, the man clears his throat and speaks with a composed authority. "Good morning. Your daughter has informed me of the situation. Due to personal family circumstances, I cannot marry her. However, I take full responsibility and will ensure she and the child are well provided for." He continues, "If she has a daughter, she will receive a Ferrari, a beach house, 2 retail stores, a townhouse, a beachfront villa, and a $2 million bank account. If it's a boy, he will inherit a couple of factories and a $4 million bank account. If she has twins, each will receive a factory and $2 million. The room is silent as the man leans forward and asks, "However, if she has a miscarriage, what do you suggest I do?" At that moment, the father, who had remained silent through the entire exchange, places a firm hand on the man's shoulder, looks him dead in the eyes, and says in a serious tone, "You take her out on another date." A female researcher was working on her thesis about how long military service affects, well, performance. During a meeting with war veterans, some still serving, some retired, she decided to ask a delicate question. "Gentlemen, please don't be shy. When was the last time you had some intimate time?" Most of the men mumbled something under their breath, embarrassed. But one man, a high-ranking general, stood tall and proudly said, "1956. Ma'am?" The researcher, shocked, blurted out, "1956. That long?" The general nodded, "Yes, ma'am." Feeling bad for him because honestly he was quite a handsome gentleman, she decided to take matters into her own hands. After the meeting, she invited him to her place for dinner. One thing led to another, and soon they were making up for lost time in the bedroom. After an hour of passionate fun, she cuddled up to the general and whispered, "Well, you certainly haven't forgotten a thing since." The general looked at her puzzled and said, "Well, I sure hope not. It's only 11:30 p.m. now." A fancy city lawyer was driving through the countryside when he spotted a beautiful apple tree on a farm. Tempted, he pulled over, jumped the fence, and grabbed a shiny red apple. Just as he took a bite, an old farmer pulled up on his tractor. "Hey there, son," the farmer said. "That's my tree. You can't just take my apples." The lawyer smirked. "I'm one of the top attorneys in the city. I could sue you for this whole farm if I wanted." The farmer chuckled. "Well, out here, we don't do lawsuits. We settle things with the country code." "The country code?" the lawyer asked. "Yep," said the farmer. "We take turns kicking each other. First one to give up loses." The lawyer, thinking he could handle an old man, agreed. The farmer, wearing thick steel-toed boots, wound up and kicked the lawyer straight in the gut. The lawyer doubled over, gasping for air. After a few minutes, he finally straightened up and gritted his teeth. "All right, old man, now it's my turn." The farmer grinned and tipped his hat. "Nah, I give up. Enjoy the apple." A guy walks into a bar, looks around, and notices an older man sitting at a nearby table. He says to the bartender, "A round on me for everyone here, except for that old guy over there." As the drinks are handed out, he looks over at the old man with a smug grin. To his surprise, the old man just nods and smiles warmly back. Confused, the guy orders another round for everyone again except for the old man, and this time he insists on only the top-shelf stuff. Yet again, the old man smiles, even bigger than before. Frustrated, the guy turns to the bartender and asks, "What's with that guy? Is he clueless or what?" The bartender chuckles and replies, "Oh no, sir. That gentleman happens to be my boss and the owner of the bar." A man's been drinking at the bar all day when he suddenly checks the time. 1:30 a.m.? Oh no, my wife's gonna kill me. He tries to stand up. Bam. Falls straight to the floor. Okay. I just need to sober up. He orders a coffee, drinks it, waits 30 minutes, then tries again. Thud. Falls even harder. At this point, he knows standing isn't an option, but he's got to get home somehow. So he does the only thing he can. He starts crawling. After 40 minutes of crawling like a lost turtle, he finally makes it home, sneaks into bed next to his thankfully sleeping wife, and passes out cold. The next morning, his wife wakes him up with that look. "So, how was last night? Did you have fun drinking all day?" Thinking she has no idea, he plays it cool. "Me? Nah, just a couple beers with coworkers." She nods. Okay. Then as she's walking away, she stops, turns back, and smirks. "By the way, the bar owner called. Your wheelchair's still there, genius." A man goes in for a job interview at the local council. The interviewer starts off with the basics. "Are you allergic to anything?" "Yeah, caffeine. I can't drink coffee." "Got it. Have you ever served in the military?" "Yes, one tour in Iraq." The interviewer nods. "That gives you 5 extra points towards employment." Next question, "Are you disabled in any way?" The man hesitates, then says, "Yeah, a bomb went off near me, and I lost both of my testicles." The interviewer winces, then says, "Sorry to hear that. All right, you've got enough points. You're hired. Our work hours are 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can start at 10 a.m. tomorrow, and from now on, just plan on coming in at 10 a.m. every day." The man is confused. "If work starts at 8 a.m., I want to do my part. I'll come in at the normal time." The interviewer chuckles. "Nah, you don't get it. This is a government job. The first 2 hours, we just stand around drinking coffee and scratching our balls. No point in you showing up for that." A man was looking for a place to sit in a crowded university library. He asked a girl, "Do you mind if I sit beside you?" The girl replied in a loud voice, "No, I don't want to spend the night with you." All the people in the library started staring at the man, who was deeply embarrassed and moved to another table. After a couple of minutes, the girl walked quietly to the man's table and said with a laugh, "I study psychology and I know what a man is thinking. I bet you felt embarrassed, right?" The man responded in a loud voice, $500 for one night? I'm not paying you that much." All the people in the library looked at the girl in shock. The man whispered to her, "I study law and I know how to people." A Canadian tourist, fascinated by Native American culture, decides to visit a reservation deep in the Arizona desert. After a long, dusty drive, he finally arrives and meets an old chief who proudly says, "I remember everything that's ever happened in my life." The tourist, curious and a bit skeptical, asks, "What did you have for breakfast on your 5th birthday?" Without skipping a beat, the chief answers, "Eggs." The tourist is amazed by the chief's sharp memory and never forgets the moment. 10 years later, the same man returns to the reservation, and to his surprise, the old chief is still there. Wanting to reconnect, he raises his hand and greets him. "How?" The chief nods and replies, "Scrambled." A sweet elderly couple in their 90s were starting to struggle a bit with their memory. At their regular checkup, the doctor reassured them that they were doing fine physically, but suggested they start writing things down to help remember little details. That evening, as they relaxed watching TV, the husband got up and headed toward the kitchen. "Would you like anything while I'm up?" he asked his wife. "Yes, I'd love a bowl of ice cream," she replied. "Got it. Maybe you should write it down," she gently suggested. "Nah, I can remember ice cream." "Well, I'd like strawberries on top." "Better write that down. Ice cream with strawberries." "Easy," he said confidently. "Oh, and whipped cream too," she added. "Please write it down so you don't forget." A little irritated, he said, I've got it. Ice cream, strawberries, whipped cream. No need to write it down. Off he went. 20 minutes later, he came back with a plate of bacon and eggs. She looked at the plate, then back at him. Where's my toast?